standing inside the small room looking at Peter directly in front of them. Fex couldn't believe it. They had successfully managed to make their way to Peter's room with no trouble at all. This type of thing could have only been done with extensive research, and Fex looked at Logan in even more amazement now. For Logan, his plan turned out better than he thought. Everything was easier than it would have been anywhere else, and the reason was that the military had kept to the same routine down to the last second. There were a few variables that Logan had planned out for, but expected that he might not have needed them. When walking through certain hallways and through the rooms, everything had turned out as he had expected. Still, he had kept his spiders out to watch just in case. If they had made any changes to their routine, the spiders would have been able to see and inform him beforehand. There was only one tricky part of the whole operation, and that was due to the room Peter was in. To keep an eye on Peter, he had been placed in a separate section compared to everyone else, a room made just for him that was void with contact to the outside. On top of this, 2 guards were to be stationed by the door. This was better for both Fex and Quinn. The military had expected an attack from the outside. The easiest time to attack would be during the event when the soldiers were busy and spread thin. If they caused a panic, they would be too busy dealing with the public than dealing with the attack. They were confident in their measures and never expected someone from the inside to do anything. Their main concern was with others, or the students seeing them, so this was better for them altogether. The 2 guards who were stationed at the front door were where Fex would come into play. The 2 of them stood just around the corner from Peter's room silently as they waited for the answer from above. As soon as Vorden had successfully knocked out Quinn, they would act. If not, they would turn around and abandon the whole thing. They needed to wait because the only thing they could do at this point was to knock out the 2 guards in front of them and take Peter away. Logan had timed everything, so the shift change had just happened. No one would find their beaten bodies for another hour, which meant they needed to take Peter to Silver within the time frame. Then a message had been received from above. "He did it, and a lot quicker than I thought," Logan said, surprised. From around the corner of the corridor, 2 spiders were released once again. They scaled up the wall and went above the ceiling. They walked until they were just above the 2 soldiers' heads. "You ready?" Logan asked as he could see Fex was fiddling with a string in his hand. This string was different from the usual type he would use. When Fex used his abilities before, it would always be nearly invisible to the eye, but this string was dyed red like blood. The ability had been infused with his vampire blood abilities to make it several times stronger. The only problem was it took some preparation time to use. This was why he was unable to use it against the King Tier beast before. At the same time, he had already deemed it would be useless because the King Tier beast was far too strong. Still, for situations like this, it was perfect. When Fex was finally ready, he gave the nod, and at the same time, the spiders fell hovering above the neck of the guards. Both of them felt something ticklish on their neck. One soldier tried slapping it, while another turned around trying to fling whatever was on him. This small distraction was all that was needed for Fex to whip out his blood-red strings. Quickly, they wrapped around their mouths like a spider web, before wrapping around their legs and pulling them to the ground. Then finally, their whole arms and legs had been covered. They tried to break free from the strings, but it was nearly impossible for them. The spiders continued to move along their body as they scanned for any traces of equipment that could give them away. The only thing that was found was a tracker that had been placed along with an alert button. However, the alert hadn't been pressed, so it was best to leave everything as it was for now. The 2 of them entered the room, and they could see Peter standing there still. He had heard the commotion outside and was wondering what was going on, but he had never expected to see these 2. Peter had already given up hope of being saved. "I never expected you to save me," Peter said. "Don't thank us yet, until you hear what we have to say, and it's not good news," Fex replied. Back above ground, Vorden had now switched back with Syl. He had sent a report to the others to proceed with what they were doing. He hadn't extracted the blood yet, as Fex had given him a warning, and they needed to wait for the timing. He knew that Quinn was currently going through getting rid of his addiction. Fex never knew about the connection Vorden had, and never expected him to be able to get such powerful abilities. He had hoped with Quinn going through the addiction, he would be weak enough to the point where it was easier for him to be knocked out, and it seemed like it had worked. There were many times when Vorden had watched Quinn. He appeared to have been given 2 or 3 chances, as if he had more lives than one, but this time that hadn't happened. However, this also meant there was a chance that during the fight, Quinn would be close to turning into a bloodsucker. He had been informed that there should be a flask similar on Quinn's body. Vorden searched and found a replica. The next step was to wait patiently for the others to get back to him, or until there were signs that Quinn was starting to change. "We have successfully gotten Peter. We're coming up now," Logan said. Everything seemed to have fallen into place. Layla had entered the room and was now standing by Quinn's side, both of them looking at Quinn's body. "How do you think he will react when he wakes up?" Layla asked. "I think he'll be pissed, but he will understand. He will soon realize if he was in our shoes, he would have done the same thing," Vorden replied, as he pulled out a small little dagger and proceeded to cut Quinn on the arm. Blood started seeping from the wound and fell into the flask. "Do you think this is right? Aren't we just sacrificing one life for another?" Layla asked. "Don't forget, Peter had already been caught by the military. There was nothing we could do. This solves both our problems. They never find out about the vampires, and for a short while, it will get the vampires off our back. 0 of 95 HP. Bloodlust is at its maximum. You are now transforming." The standard messages would appear, even though Quinn wasn't conscious. Suddenly, as the flask was filled, Quinn's body started to jolt up and down as it began to shake. Vorden knew what this was straight away. He quickly handed over the flask with Quinn's blood to Layla. He then grabbed the other flask that was on Quinn's body. He held his mouth open with one hand while pouring it all in with the other. A few moments later, the shaking had stopped. The veins and muscles that were bulging had calmed down, and it looked like everything was safe for now. "Multiple blood types have been consumed. Calculating stat increases." "Here, take this as well," Vorden said, handing over the second flask. "Fex said for Quinn to keep it, but I'm afraid it might only bring us more trouble in the future. Give it back to him." "Don't worry about me and just go," Vorden shouted. Before leaving, she took one look at Quinn. There was a good chance that his current life now would be hers. Always running away, but still. At least Quinn isn't following anyone. He chose to do things his way. With that, she ran off out of the building. "Don't wake up, Quinn," Vorden said. "It's for your own good." Outside, the two boys had returned with Peter. They had given him one of the masks to wear for now, in case the other students outside would see him. Although it was pretty late now, nearly all of the students had already returned to their rooms. Layla came running out towards them as they met on the platform a little away from Military Hotel 2. She could see the three boys in their masks, and she had to admit it looked a little intimidating. The masks had a scary look to them in their designs and made them all appear like demons. "Do you have the blood?" Fex asked. "It's right here," Layla said, handing over the flask. She then quickly pulled out the second one and handed it to him as well. "Vorden said he knows you mean well, but there is a chance others could come looking for it." Fex wanted to say no. He wanted Quinn to at least have something to remember him by when he left. This was a gift, but at the same time, he would be selfish otherwise if he insisted. It was true, if humans found the flask, there was a good chance he would be investigated. He took the two flasks and then grabbed Peter by the arm. "Tell Quinn he doesn't have to worry about the vampires. There are no vampires stationed at Military Base 2, nor are there any at the other military bases now. Once I leave with Peter, he will have nothing to worry about for a good while. I don't have the time to say goodbye to you all, and neither does Peter. I wish you all good luck in the future," Fex said, as he grabbed Peter and took off into the distance. A cloud of mist seemed to encase the two of them, and when the mist had settled, they no longer could be seen. Layla and Logan didn't even have the chance to even say their final words. "You know, when Fex first came, I kind of hated him, especially with everything he did to Aaron," Layla said. "But he was never a bad guy. I'm going to miss that idiot." "It will certainly feel weird without him and my assistant. Good luck to you two as well," Logan said. Before they had left Peter's room, both Fex and Vorden had updated Peter on the whole situation. They informed him of the plan and the troubles that came with it. Without hesitation, after being told what needed to be done, Peter had agreed. After hearing this was all for Quinn's sake, he was happy he would be of some help to his creator and savior. However, the sudden response seemed strange, Fex thought. Sure, Wights were loyal to their creators, but not like this one. One would have to command order and be forced to do so due to the bond of blood, but Peter seemed to have been so accepting over the whole thing. "I can't guarantee what will happen to you when they find out," Fex said. "You could be killed." The words spoken were trying to deter him. "It's okay," Peter replied. "Better than being left in the hands of the humans. Besides, if I stayed, there is a good chance they would find out about all of you, and I wouldn't want anything to happen." Hearing these words had put a smile on Vorden's face. "Peter, you did change for the better, and I don't think it's just because you're a Wight now," said Vorden. "When you first evolved, you seemed cruel and distant, but those words right there, they didn't come from the Wight version of you or the old Peter. Right now I see a new man." Hearing Vorden's words just confirmed Fex's strange thoughts further. Wights were relatively short-tempered and evil. Sure, Peter had shown this a few times, but it wasn't to the degree of Wights that he knew. Perhaps this was the influence of Quinn's will on the Creator. It was a shame, as it seemed to be progressing slowly. Peter started to change away from the standard Wight. "Let's go," Fex said. After parting ways from the others, Peter was taken to a safe, secluded place out on the platform, away from the meeting point with Silver, as well as away from the others. The masks were now returned, and right now, Peter had transformed his face to look like Quinn. If anyone were to see the two of them, they would just think they were nothing more than two students laughing. There was no chance for someone else to spot Quinn either, as Vorden was keeping an eye on him in the special training room. "Do you hate me?" Fex asked. "No," Peter replied instantly, but gave nothing more back. "I hate me," Fex said. "You know, I thought I might get attached to this place and hate to go back home. What I didn't expect was that I would get attached to the people rather than the place. I can't help but think that they all had to go through this just because of my selfish wants." "The vampires would have come for Quinn anyway," Peter replied. "What do you mean by that?" Fex asked. There was no reason to send any of the vampires to the military base. They had only come out to search for him. Peter hadn't replied because he didn't know why the vampires would come after Quinn. All he knew was before, Quinn would often say that it seemed like, for some reason, he was trying to get stronger as fast as possible, as if he was preparing for a threat ahead. "Oh, I think I know," Fex said, giving his answer and coming to his conclusion as usual. It had to be something to do with the shadow powers. There was a good chance that Quinn's master was part of the old Punishers, if they were still around. If the others knew about this, they certainly would send people after him. Even if Quinn's master wasn't a Punisher, the others would want to get their hands on Quinn's power for themselves and find out which family was in charge of Quinn. "I never did find out the truth behind him." Fex at first was very curious, but soon felt bad about trying to find details of what he would now call a friend back. It just felt wrong, and it wasn't in his nature to do things like that. "Here, take this," Fex said, as he handed the flask over to Peter. After opening the lid, Peter gulped down the whole drink in one go, and suddenly had a strange feeling in his chest. It was something he hadn't felt in a while, and it was all a little alien to him. "The sound! My heart! It's beating again!" As the blood fell down his throat and reached his heart, strange energy surged through his body. The blood was now being pumped from the heart all over the body. He could feel it moving through his veins. It felt as if his insides were on fire. For anyone else, it would be a painful experience, but for Peter, it was a joy, since it was the first time he had felt pain in a while. "What is this?" Peter asked. "It's your master's blood. Usually there would be no reason to do this to a Wight. Their strengths are the fact that they can't feel pain. If anything, this makes you seem more human. Anyway, don't be too happy. The effects are temporary," Fex explained. "Our powers come from our blood, and right now, Quinn's power is inside you. Right now, the feeling, the smell, and even the look. With all this, I wouldn't be able to tell who I was looking at. As in terms of power, although your attacks and such will be healthy, you still can't produce any blood attacks like we are. Also, I would urge you not to fight or test out any of your powers. At most, I see this lasting a week. Day by day, the power will slowly start to fade, and sooner or later, they will find out. If you start using that extra strength of yours, it will only go away quicker." Fex then took a deep breath as he started to walk off to one of the military bases. "Leave all the talking to me." Once again, Silver was waiting patiently on top of the roof of Building 4. In her hand was a rectangular-looking device that looked identical to the one in Logan's room. It was a portable teleporter. She had trusted that her brother would complete the task, although he was a fool. He wasn't one to break promises. When he said he would finish it, she already knew he would get it done. "You're here," she said, as two figures jumped up from the side. "Oh," Silver replied, seeing that the person she had brought with them was still fully conscious. "As you requested, this is the vampire who had made it illegal. I had been tailing him a while and explained everything had happened. When I told him that a vampire knight was here to catch him, he immediately turned himself in, knowing there was no need to fight." A vampire knight, a class that was designated just below the vampire leader. It was a unique role, as each family was able to designate only 2 vampires in their family. They would mostly be in charge of running things or giving orders if the vampire leader wasn't present. Because of this, to be able to be elected into such a position, one would need a strong power to keep the others in the line. Seeing the beautiful woman in front of him, Peter felt nothing, yet for some reason, that seemed to worry him even more. When he had first encountered Fex, his wild energy could be felt throughout. One could tell he was strong. But with Silver it was calm. It was as if she wasn't even there, yet clearly she stood right in front of him. "And what of the illegal?" she asked. "I have taken care of him and gotten rid of the body, but since he and this one are registered students, they will soon find out about them. I suggest we leave as soon as possible." Silver walked over to Fex slowly. The sound of her boots hitting the floor was heard. Everything had been prepared for this moment, and he had answered perfectly. Now he just needed her to believe him. However, he was too afraid and didn't want to look up for even a second. Suddenly he felt a hand on his hair. Silver ruffled it up and gave it a little pat. "You have done well, little brother. I will tell the family of your good deeds here, and they shall lighten the punishment." The square portal device was placed on the ground, and a unique digital number was imputed. The contraption started to open itself up, slowly piece by piece, until it had finally connected. Fex quickly tied up Peter's hand behind his back with his string ability and pulled him along. "Goodbye, everyone," he said in his head as he stepped through the portal, with Peter following behind. Soon after, Silver threw a small circular ball on the floor and stepped through herself. The small circular ball started to blink red and made a beeping sound. The blinking along with the sound started to get faster until the ball had exploded, destroying everything in a 2-meter radius, including the portal. No one would be able to follow their traces to the vampire's home. Slowly, it seemed like Quinn was waking up. A few grunts were heard here and there as he started to lift himself off the floor. His insides were hurting, which was a strange feeling, but his body was mostly healed from the attack. When he had opened his eyes, he was greeted with several messages that had appeared while he was knocked out. 50 of 95 HP, hunger has diminished, transformation has been cancelled, multiple blood types consumed, stat points allocated, 4 free stat points remaining. Quinn quickly tried to get his head around what the messages had meant and tried to remember his last moments. Suddenly, he started to remember he was in the middle of a fight, and it was with Vorden. It hadn't lasted for long. The only thing he could guess was that he had been knocked. Transformation cancelled. I see it's all starting to make sense now. I must have been knocked out in the middle of the fight. I was low on HP in the first place and started to transform. The stat increase and the HP regained must have been from the blood in the flask. When Quinn found out he was getting addicted, he decided to stop consuming blood daily. However, he soon realized that it didn't mean he had to stop collecting blood from different students. After placing one of the students' blood in the flask, he later collected other students' blood and placed it into the container. When his HP was low enough, he would consume the flask with all the blood in it, giving him a boost in stats as well as helping him get rid of his addiction. Status, stats, Strength 26, Agility 27, Stamina 21, Charm 28. He had also obtained 4 more free stat points to be used whenever he wished. I'll continue to place it into Charm for now, he thought. The reason for this was no student's blood type would directly increase the Charm stat like the others. On top of this, currently, he knew of and had found no equipment that did such a thing either, while all the other stats still had the benefit of higher-tier equipment. His plan had significantly worked. As long as he had the flask, he could continue to do this without addiction to blood. He reached around his side and went to grab the flask. Right now he felt so overjoyed that he wanted to grab it and kiss it. Huh? Where's the flask? Quinn thought, as he panicky started to grab around his waist, but could find nothing. So you're finally awake, Vorden said, making sure that he was a few feet away. He didn't know how Quinn would react to the whole thing, and made sure to keep his distance. Hearing the voice made Quinn spring up to his feet, and instantly he got into a fighting stance. "Shadowy Quinn, wait, it's me. I was the one that gave you the blood, Quinn, calm down." "What's your name?" Quinn asked. "I'm Vorden, it's me, Quinn. Remember we went to the Red Portal planet together, and you turned into that bloodsucker? If you want proof, I can even go into detail about how you ate—" Stop, I believe you," Quinn said, not wanting Vorden to remind him of what had happened back then. "What happened to you, Vorden? Was it you that attacked me? Was it pure? What's going on?" Quinn asked. "Do you remember a while ago when I said if there were some things you found out about me, I would have to kill you?" Vorden replied. "At the time, it probably seemed like a joke, but I was quite serious. There are some secrets that I have, Quinn, but that's not important right now." "What do you mean it's not important right now?" Quinn shouted back. "You or Syl or whoever it was just fried my arse." "There's something you need to know. It's about Peter and Fex. I promise I'll explain everything." The trust between the two of them had been partially broken, and Vorden could see that. So he made sure to stay a few feet away from Quinn while explaining the details of what had happened and why. What Fex's part in all of this was and what his part of it was as well. Once he explained everything, there was silence between the two of them. Vorden had been prepared for a telling off, a scolding, or even sadness, but there was no reaction at all. After a few moments, Quinn started to walk towards him with his head down. Seeing this, Vorden gulped and moved to the side out of the way. However, Quinn continued to move forward until he eventually reached the door. "Quinn, aren't you going to say anything?" Vorden asked. He just couldn't stand the silence anymore. "I'm disappointed, in not just you, Vorden, but everyone. Since when could you not trust me to make my own decisions? Even worse, when did you guys start making the decisions for me?" Looking around the room, Quinn lifted his hand and swung his fist into the door as hard as he could. "Open the door!" he shouted, as he slammed his fist into the metal door again. It was sturdy since it was made out of glathrium, and even the strongest people could not do anything to the door. Quinn lifted his hand and proceeded to punch it again. This time the skin from his knuckles ripped, and there was a bloody fist mark left on the door. 49 of 95 HP. Seeing this, Vorden hurried over and entered the code at the side, allowing the doors to open. As soon as they did, Quinn continued to storm off and away. "Wait, Quinn, where are you going? You're not going to try to do anything, are you? They're already gone," Vorden said, afraid that he might go looking for them, which was pointless. "I know," said Quinn. "I can no longer feel Peter's presence. It's too far away. I just want to be alone for a bit." Sometimes one needed space and time to heal. Vorden knew this better than most, and decided to let him go for now until he had calmed down. Quinn continued to walk around the large platform in a circle. As he went by, he looked and went past each of the military hotels. He was thinking about everything that had happened until he had eventually stopped and started to look over the ledge down into the arena floor. "I can't blame them. They did what they thought was best for me and Peter. Who knows what would have happened to him? The only person I can blame for being in the situation I'm in is myself. I'm just too weak. Too weak to help Peter, too weak for Fex to even rely on me. And Fex, at first I didn't trust him, but it seemed like he did keep his word till the end. He didn't give me up to the vampires, and everything he did was to protect me. System, do you know what will happen to Fex and Peter once they find out Peter's real identity?" Quinn asked. "Honestly, I'm not too sure. It seems like a lot of time has passed, and as the world changes, so do the rules. Although vampires usually stay relatively close to tradition. A trial will be placed where the council shall decide their fate. If you want me to be really honest with you, they will kill Peter. They will assume he is something called an illegal, since he won't be in their files. What they don't know is that Peter is not illegal." "What do you mean by that?" Fex said that a vampire that wasn't created by one of the 13 leaders, or at least didn't have their permission, would be considered an illegal, correct? "Yes, but don't you remember when you created your own family? Peter is part of the cursed family. Do you also remember when I told you to keep this a secret from other vampires no matter what? Well, I suppose it's time it told you the truth. Quinn, when you created that family, you became one of the 13 leaders. Your family name has taken over the missing 10th seat," the system explained. "Wait, does that mean if I tell them who I am, about the family, then Peter will live and Fex won't get in trouble?" Quinn asked. "No," the system replied instantly. "Think about it. Why do you think the 10th family seat was empty in the first place? I can't stop your destined fate in the future, Quinn, but I can delay it. You inform them of who you are now, and you will become a target in an instant. Then explain to me. Explain what happened, Quinn shouted in his mind. Could you explain to me who you are? And explain to me what happened to the 10th family? And don't give me this crap that you can't tell me. Quinn already had some ideas and guesses of his own who the system was, as slowly everything was starting to be revealed. However, there was no point in overthinking it until he could confirm his guesses. I'm afraid I cannot tell. You're useless, Quinn said, as he continued to storm off back to his hotel room. Inside the Military Base 1 hotel, on one of the top floors, an urgent knock was heard at one of the Big Four's doors. Sir, please answer immediately. We have a report from Duke, a man said, desperately trying to get into the room. Jack immediately answered the door after hearing Duke's name. If it was something in the middle of the night, it couldn't have been good news. What is it? Jack asked. It's about the student Peter. He's missing.
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.